Vibhuti Sachdev is Dean at SSAA and Director of the Architecture, Planning and Design Schools of Sushant University. She qualified as an architect in 1989 from SPA Delhi, completed her PhD in 1996 from the University of London, and has worked as a conservation consultant, writer, and as a designer. She has taught at the University of Sussex and has written 4 books and several articles on the subjects of Jaipur, traditional knowledge systems, Indian cities, and on Indian modernity. Dr. Sachdev has been a consultant on the restoration of the Jal Mahal in Jaipur, was the design curator for the artwork of its pavilions, and the co-curator of the exhibition called Painted Pleasures. She is currently working on devising an integrated approach to learning and developing a research ecosystem for the creative fields of architecture, planning, and for design. May I now kindly call upon Vibhuti ma'am to give her talk, A Shastric Perspective on Stone.
Thank you, Oshin, for introducing me, and thank you, Samriti and team, for inviting me to this. This is, as Ravi has also said, this is a huge topic, and whatever we may try to do today is just going to be a glimpse of what what we could build on, we could do. What I'm going to sort of present is why I call it the Shastric is, just to give you a glimpse of the textual view on the material, in a way to kind of understand or appreciate, what stone stands for, how we approach stone, how we've culturally approached stone, what does it mean, where does it come from, how do you know it, what are the types of stone, how do you meet the stone, what is culturally, what does it mean? And of course, in the Indian lexicon, there are lots of words which also open a lot of meanings. There's Pashan, there's Shila, and I'm not going to go into that because that's, subject of another discussion. My, short talk is divided into 2 parts. One is to see, appreciate the source of the stone. What is the source of the stone? Stone is regarded as a fruit of the earth. It's the earth from which it comes out from. In the Indian philosophy, our relationship with the earth, with the universe, is sort of all enveloping. So you are kind of part of what surrounds you, and the built surrounds you, and the environment surrounds you, and as you zoom out, the earth surrounds you, and the universe surrounds you. So you're a small part of all this creation. So you're in it, you're never outside of it. And I think that is one of the most fundamental differences between Indic philosophy and the Western philosophy, where the human being is looked as existing within rather than outside of it. So it's not a relationship you have with the universe. You have a relationship being inside the universe. So there is a difference of approach in the Indian philosophy and for the want of a better word, Western philosophy. So where does the stone come from? The stone comes from the earth. And when we talk about the earth, we might want to look at the Bhumi Sukta, which is of the Atharvaved. It's a very famous ode to the earth. It's a very long sukta, praise of the earth, ode to the earth. And I have just chosen a few parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, just to give you a sense of the stone, what it means as being part of the earth. Now, what is earth? What is earth? And the part that describes the earth in the Bhumi Sukta says, your hills, O earth, your snow-clad mountain peaks, your forests, may they show us kindliness. Brown, black, red, multifarious in hue, and solid is this vast earth guarded by Indra, invincible, unconquered, unharmed. I have on her established my abode. So there is this sense of, the earth being the recipient of life, the human life, and we sort of hope kindliness from the earth, which accepts our house, our abode on it. So how do we form a relationship? What is the relationship of between us and the earth? How do we look at it? And it was very interesting. It's almost, natural to think of the earth as a feminine. And as Ravi also said of the building, giving the example of the grandmother, the old grandmother who needs care. So it's almost kind of automatically, culturally, we are attuned to looking at Bhumi as a woman, or in terms of gender, and of course the Purusha and Prakriti and all those things we could discuss in another time. But what is the relationship? So the Bhumi Sukta says, impart to us those vitalizing forces that come, O earth, from deep within your body. Your central point, your navel, purify us wholly. The earth is mother. I am son of earth. The rain giver is my father. May he shower on us blessings. So, in that conceptually, it's quite clear that, there is a strong, relationship, and we see the human beings are the children of the earth, who's the mother. And what is this earth made of? The composition of earth. And Bhumi Sukta, I'm quoting again, says, earth is composed of rock, of stone, of dust. Earth is compactly held, consolidated. I venerate this mighty earth, the golden breasted. So it's the idea that the earth is solid and stable and, compact and almost, a stone. Is invoked many times. And what do you do when you dig earth? So again, I'm quoting, whatever I dig up of you, O earth, may you of that have quick replenishment. O purifying ore, may my thrust never reach unto your vital points, your heart. So there is a very strong sense again that, when we draw stone out of earth, we are in a way injuring it. We are in a way taking out something from it, and almost kind of a sense of guilt that we hope that whatever we take out of it gets replenished, which also means that there is a cycle of rebirth or replenishment, or that going on constantly, that what you take out, then there is a process of how stone is getting built inside the earth, so that even when stone is harvested, it's almost an idea of harvesting stone from the earth, and that whatever is taken out then gets refilled. So with those conceptual ideas in mind, we can look at Vastu Shastras, and most of the texts on architecture, or Vastu Shastras as they're called collectively, talk about material, both in great detail: wood, earth, mud, and stone, and others. And so I'm just focusing on a few examples from Mehmatam, and Mansar also has similar ideas. Vasuraj Vallabh, which is a northern Indian text, also talks about stone in a similar way. So these are generic ideas collected from various texts. So what is a good stone? A good stone is dense. So this idea of density, which is also called ghanatva. Ghanatva means, it's solid, it's dense, something that's weighty, and is compact. A good stone is smooth, so it's smooth to touch, smooth to the sight. The first tool of measurement, the most important tool of measurement or judgment is the eye. And when you look at a good stone, it should feel smooth even before you've touched it. And that is why there is a great importance given in the traditional skills to train the eye. And and there are lots of methods given to how you can measure, how you can train the eye to see a human being, how can face reading, all those things to kind of make your sense of sight sharp, so smooth. A good stone is one that is deeply embedded in earth. So it's kind of extracted out, even if it's called from the hills. Hills are also, at some point are deeply embedded, and they sort of come out of the earth. And that is the sense one gets, that the hills are not planted on earth; they are coming out from deep within it, and so it's not something that belongs to the surface. So therefore, the idea of it getting pulled out of its heart, even. So the sense of you might injure the earth when you're harvesting stone, because you're pulling it out from deep within it, and it's embedded. A good stone also has an orientation. So orientation in terms of how it's in the earth, what direction it faces. A good stone faces eastward or northward. Those are the two directions that are considered auspicious. Good stone also has a pleasant appearance. Now, this to an untrained mind or an untrained eye may seem bizarre to say, pleasant, and it may seem, of course, subjective. But if you're, I think Alice Bonet once said that, what is cultural, what is connoisseurship, or what is, how do you judge quality? And these are paradigms that are very much part of one's culture, and culture is the core. And when you're aligned with that traditional knowledge system, then you kind of rotate around it. And when somebody says pleasant, it's not just aesthetic, it's not just beauty, it's not just it's the word pleasant has many connotations to it, which kind of could we could unpack it and to understand much more. But age is very important for the stone. A mature stone is what one is looking for use. What is a mature stone? And a mature stone is suitable for every use. A mature stone is neither young nor old or aged. So that maturity, that stone in its prime, a stone is something that grows. It's young and it grows. It matures and then it ages, like us, like human beings. So stone has an age as well. So it grows with time. So what is a young stone? Young stone produces a sound of a partially baked brick. So if any of, I think most of us have handled bricks, and you can, if you knock a brick, it's not a shrill sound. And if the brick is partially baked, then the sound is not very high pitched. It's like, you touch a porous thing. A young stone is also soft when struck by a hatchet. So there is a sense that, like Ravi also said, that, there is dust, there is stone, and, stone is kind of the deeper layer of the dust. And the young stone is in that process of getting old or mature. So it's softer, it's fragile, it's like a young child. It's still maturing, it's still, hardening, sort of straight, still not strong. A mature stone produces a deep sound and is smooth. So it doesn't have that porous, that powdery feeling to it, like a unbaked brick would have. It feels cool to touch. You see, if any of, I'm sure this we have experience, but if you observe, if you touch something, a brick that is not well baked, it's warmer than a brick that is, completely well baked. So a mature stone is cold, cool, and a young stone will be, warmer. Mature stone is not fragmented, and a mature stone glows, and you can see, the light it, emanates. What's an aged stone? An old stone. Old stone is rough, like the skin of the toad or a fish. So if you feel, I'm sure, I think most of us have felt the skin of fish, not toad, I think. But I find it quite interesting, in these texts when, things are described in terms of other things that exist in our universe, in our built environment. This just reflects the interconnectedness of people with their environment. So that if you're describing, say, surface of a stone like a skin of toad, which obviously suggests that people generally, go about their day touching skins of toads and fish, and therefore are familiar with animal life and aquatic life, and and they're not, they are living within nature, and if I asked my students, oh, this stone feels like the skin of toad, and they will think, what is that? I mean, how does a skin of toad feel like? They would know, because we're not living that life where we are surrounded with, nature, and we're experiencing other life forms. So I find this quite interesting when descriptions are made in terms of, other life forms. It just shows the interconnectedness of life in the environment. So aged stone also has streaks. It develops streaks. It's much like, the idea of wrinkles. I think, the old skin, aged stone has flaws, has spots, and is not suitable for new construction. So it's quite clear from these three examples, that mature stone will be ideal to use for construction. The next point is very, very interesting because it says a stone with circumvolutions, when cut, is pregnant and should be discarded. So this idea that, under the earth, stone is being produced and stone is also bearing children, that it is producing other stone, and that you could hit upon, rock or stone within which you might find another stone or another circumvolution, a circular thing, and that is a pregnant stone, and one mustn't use that. And it would be interesting to dig deeper into this dynamics of how stone is made, how it replenishes itself, and that's what Atharvaved also talked about. That whatever you draw out of the earth, hope that it is then replenished, and this is how it's getting replenished because it's producing more. And there is a life cycle that is going on under the earth. And one needs to tap into it, understand it, so that one doesn't interfere with that life cycle for our own good. And one respects it, and one is actually following the rhythm of that life cycle. That is what is important. So you pulsate with that rhythm of the life cycle so that you don't oppose it, and that is the positive way of living, that you're pulsating with that rhythm. Stone also has gender. There is male stone. Male stone is uniform in color. It is dense, smooth, cylindrical, and produces the symbol of an elephant bell when struck. So I'm sure Ravi is more familiar than elephant bells than we in the north are. But the huge elephant bells made of gunmetal, I think. Ravi, you can tell me if I'm wrong. And it has a particular kind of very, very melodious, deep sound. Very typical, I can hear it in my ear. And it's solid. It's sort of dense. It's a dense sound. And that's why I think the metaphor, because you're describing something dense. So it's like the sound of an elephant bell, which is also dense. Female stone is white bottom, narrow head, like the female body. Produces sound of a cymbal. The manjari. So it's a very different, again, it's not that dense, it's like very feminine, if I could say, the sound pitch is very different. The third gender is genderless or neuter gender. You see, even the Sanskrit language has 3 genders. You've got Striling and Pulling and Napunsakling, and many of the things that describe gender of things also has 3 genders. The neuter gender is wide around the middle and produces no sound. The next point it describes is the damage that is caused. Stone gets damaged by wind. Stone is damaged by sun and fire. And in alkaline water, stone is damaged when it's shaky or is displaced. And it gets damaged easily when it's rough with cracks and streaks. So this is, all of this sounds obvious. But it also means that when you list the obvious points of what causes damage, then you could, do something about it. And the idea that, if you provide shade, what stone carving also does is that it reduces the exposure of the stone surface to direct sun. So when you have carved surfaces, it shades it. The face of the stone. A stone also has a face, so it has an underside, it has an overside, and it has a direction. So traditionally, the stone will be used in the same orientation with the same face in the building as it was found in the quarry. So the face of the stone is the underside as quarried out. So it's stone lies on the earth with its face down. That's what it means. So you're lying on the earth with your face down, and then the woken up stone, you wake it up, and it gets it's exposed. So that is the face of the stone. And of course, logically, scientifically, the side. And tell me if I haven't tested it scientifically, but is it true that the underside of the stone is stronger than the outside? So therefore, you put the underside of the stone outside in the building because it's the stronger face. And it is placed in the same direction as it is found, because it's kind of it has aged or it has matured in a certain orientation, and it is strongest when it retains that position. Also, and stone, when it's quarried, is split by striking a sharp chisel face, and the face is marked on the side. So So when I say use the metaphor of harvesting, it's exactly like that. You see, imagine a fruit-laden tree. The best fruit, the sweetest guava or the mango is the one that the tree leaves from its own will. So the fruit that the tree leaves from its own will is the best ripened fruit. Now, the fruit that ripens while on the tree will have gone off. It's not ready to be eaten, or it's died, or it's flawed. So the ripest mango is the one that drops from the tree, and you pick it up as soon as it drops and you eat it. How many of us can do that in our cities? I don't know. But that is the notion that the tree offers its fruit by its own will. So, and when the fruit that is still ripening on the tree is not ripened till it leaves it. So similar, this is similar to the stone, because when you quarry the stone with one striking of the chisel, the stone should leave the earth. If it takes too much pressure, too much force, too much thing, either it'll get damaged or it's not mature enough to leave. It's not mature enough to be taken away from its, so to speak, mother, and it's still growing. It's not ready yet. So that is so when it leaves, when the chisel, and of course a trained stone carver, mason would knows, of course. Many of us have seen that on sites. They know where to strike in the quarry, where to strike the stone, and it kind of just comes, the whole slab just comes out effortlessly from the quarry. And that's when the gender is revealed. And the three genders that I described briefly, the male, the female, the shape, and is revealed once the stone leaves the bed, and then forms its identity and has a face. Then has a face, and the face of the stone is marked at that point. This is the face, and this is the back. This is the head, and this is the foot. And then it is placed in the same position in the building. Um, so there's also, a very elaborate ritual that goes along the process of quarrying, and there are of course prayers, invocation to the earth, requesting the spirits to depart uh, from the place, because we are taking the stone away from the earth to be used in our house or in our building, and may it quickly get replenished, so that when you have the uh, the procurement of wood ritual. When the tree is cut, you first ask the spirits to depart, because you're about to cut the tree for your own use, and may they find an abode elsewhere, and then you take the material away from. So it's a very elaborate process. It's a process that prepares your mind, engages your mind with the material that you're going to use. It creates a special bond with the material that is going to be used in your building, and it also kind of follows the rhythm of the place it is from, to sort of give you a very sharp sense of the origin of the material. Now, the origin is a very important aspect of material in our culture. Where does the water come from? What is the origin of water? Gomuk, Ganga. Where does it come from? Where does the stone come from? Where does this where is this well? So ancestral, so the roots, the origin of everything is important in our culture. So it's already 4:00. So this is, there is lots and lots more. There are also specialized texts on stone one could look at. There is stone that is used in carving idols. There are texts that are to do with Murtikala and all that. So there is an elaborate knowledge system, if you like, on stone. And of course, there is this a huge resource of craftsmen who are still there, and who have this knowledge. They articulate it in a different way, maybe in different language, but there is a similarity in how they associate the material, how they approach the material. That it is a living thing. It is something that you bond with. It is something that you have a relationship with. It's not it's not something just pulled out and used. Of course, there is a need to do, there's lots of further research could be done in traditional techniques, but one of the things that I hope somebody takes up or is done is to establish a stone library in this country. I think it would be a great idea to have a library of stone, and this is something that Swinton Jacob did in Albert Museum in Jaipur, and Shika must know that he had collected stone from various quarries in Rajasthan, got little samples, and wrote down the local name and the scientific name and the name of the quarry and the features and how it is used and where it is used. Now, what happened was, when it was getting redecorated, all the stone samples and the labels were put in one sack. So all that knowledge is lying somewhere in a sack in the basement of some museum. I don't know, but it would be a great idea if we have a stone library of which has these local names of stone, the quarries, the application of these stones, and the stories behind these stones. There is so much. There's so many stories around these stones, and it'll be a great opportunity for younger generation to learn about these and to kind of, in a way, preserve and carry these traditions on. I think there's a great need for that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for a very different perspective on stone, which I think is very unfamiliar for most of us. When you talk about stones as having feelings, when you talk about the texture, when you talk about the sound, so it was a very different and very interesting kind of talk which you gave. So now I would like to open the round for questions which people might have. So.
Yeah, thank you, Vibhuti, for your very, very interesting talk. I never thought about it. The feelings of stones, or that a stone can be lying or can be pregnant or can trigger affects. And well, I would like to try to think about it more. And the first idea that comes to my mind when I think about the resonance between stones and us is mimesis. So how can something organic, how can life be represented by something we would consider inorganic or mineral? So this problem of mimesis is perhaps best represented in an Indian feature of architecture called Garbhagira. And this, if you translate it, it's the womb. So I would like to ask you a womb question. So because you were speaking about gender, and this representation of womb in stone, does it require a special stone, or is there a specific ornamentation? I mean, I've now listening to your talk, I understand it much better. What is Garbha Griha? And perhaps you could refer to this mimetic feature that the belly or the womb is done in stone as a sign of life, or a possibility of perhaps changing, even though who in a Freudian sense return to the mother's womb and come out of it again. So please try to enlighten me about this feature. Thank you.
Again, I think it's a very vast and important subject of not just regeneration of life. And of course, all life form comes from the womb. All of us have come out of a womb, and the navel is regarded as the center of the body. It's also regarded as the center of the earth, metaphorically, center of the universe. So, this is where the Brahmas. I don't know if you've seen the Vishnu and the Padmanabh, where the lotus comes out from the navel. And the navel is what connects us to our ancestors. It's the umbilical cord. It's what connects us to our forefathers, and also connects us to what is to come. So in a way, also the navel point is also from where the breath turns. So we're all breathing in and we're breathing out. And when you're breathing in, your breath then turns. You're not just breathing from the lungs, you're breathing from your belly. And I'm talking about entirely from the perspective of the Indian notion, not the Western scientific. So I'm not, kind of contradicting anything. I'm just talking about it from the Ayurvedic point of view, from the Indic point of view. So when you breathe in and the breath then goes out, it is from the navel that it goes out. So there is a there is a rebirth with every breath. So it's like a rebreath. And therefore the womb and the Garbhagriha as well, it's, that's why the Garbhagriha is the sanctum sanctorum, so translated. That's why it's very dark. It's not, doesn't have windows. It's like going to the center of life again. And being in the womb is the first experience of life. And it's when most of the, you mentioned the Freudian stuff. I find Freudian explanations of many things very, very objectionable. I don't like his ideas of, the fact that it's almost archaeological, of course. He treats, the interpretation of dreams, for example, the fact that everything you dream of has to have something has a sexual connotation to it, and that, it's all gendered and so on. I think we have very different ideas of, firstly, the various stages of sleep, for example. There are various levels of sleep. So what is the dream that Freud is interpreting? And there is a dream and there's a telling of dream, and there is, so yeah, in Western psychology, I'm not an expert on Freud, but I know enough that it doesn't really align with what culturally we have been developing for, several centuries, probably. And so I don't know if I've answered your question, because I don't know how to answer it, because it's a very the womb is a very important. Pregnancy is very important, and we have a lot of rituals that are attached to pregnancy. For example, the first few months and what you do, and the rituals that are performed, and when the woman gives birth. When the woman gives birth, the whole body is like jelly. So in fact, the woman goes through a lot of processes to get her body back. So it becomes jelly, and then it solidifies again. So that process, and culturally, it's very strong. The idea of so anything that is pregnant must be handled with a lot of reverence and care, and because it's holder of life, anything that holds life. And yes, one could say that now I think even Western science saying that everything is energy. So everything, in fact, is sound. Therefore, so all life force is made of moving particles. It just depends. Nothing is solid. I mean, if the house we're living in was solid, then how could we have internet access? It's obviously being penetrated by various energies are getting through it, so it's not solid. Otherwise, I wouldn't have Wi-Fi in my house if it was solid. So the distinction between living and non-living is not black and white. In fact, there is not. So it is a different organization of the world. So these are various ways in which we explain our world, and the distinction is not so black and white. I mean, it's not. I don't know if I've answered your question. I don't think I have, but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ma'am, I would say that I'm very glad that you proposed this title for your talk, and it's so fascinating. So across the entire world, we see stone mostly as a material for crafting utilitarian objects, or we see it, you know, one of the major hard materials for building construction. But the perspectives that you just shared from ancient Indian scriptures and texts like Mansar, Shilp Shastra, they give a very, very profound perspective how we in India especially see stone beyond an object, and how we see it as something sacred and connected to life and culture. So that was very fascinating. I would request if you could share with us a sort of bibliography or more resources for such ancient, scriptures and texts to refer to. And
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you. And I also see a very interesting interrelationship between Indian narratology and stone, the kinds of stories and the mention of stone in different forms and aspects and rituals that are covered. So
I'm
that
also
was,
reminded of Samiti, sorry for interrupting, but I'm
yeah,
also reminded of Ammonites, the Shaligram, the idea of these are swambhu, these are self-appearing stone, elliptical stone, which have certain markings and therefore have religious and spiritual value. And
right.
experts, I'm not an expert in all these. These are really sacred, and I feel and I feel there is so much expertise and learning in our country, and I'm just kind of giving a glimpse, a very small glimpse. But these ammonites have energy in it, and they and people can tell and they can feel the energy, and it's not hocus pocus. You can it's not
Right, right. Yeah, I get it. No, I think what you proposed to be, what you proposed as an idea to establish a stone library is, of course, very kosher. And we would really request you to, help us with that repository and resources like this on the Shastric perspective. So I'll come back to you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you also for other reason. During this talk, many of my questions of last 20, 30 years were partially answered. Yes, in the sense, why the many other whys found some answers today. And I was looking at a window of a textbook, a geologist textbook or a petrography or XRD. I'm not saying that we should not, but there is such a nice way of understanding this in another road. It's an altogether different road. And we're not good enough. Somewhere the educational arrogance takes us to the wrong road. I can't say wrong road, but another road. And then you can't come back from the road easily. There's a Nietzsche said, sometimes you go a long distance out of the way to come back a short distance correctly. So thank you so much. I really wish to read and hopefully even at my age try and correct myself. Thank you so much.
I have something to say. I would like to share my thoughts. I have some queries, and very interesting. Now it has become, after Mr. Rabindra Gundarao, he presented a scientific perspective. Now, this one, I may say, is a metaphysical perspective, a spiritual perspective. We have, on earth, in this world, we have two things. One is matter. And what is complementary to the matter is according to me, is spirit. So human being is a repository of both matter and spirit. That is how he is. When he is living, he has spirit as well as he has matter. So scientifically speaking, man, or for that matter, any organism or anything on earth is nothing but certain chemicals, certain minerals, whatever known elements are there. So anything that you see around, that you have experienced, you have used, all that we have on earth is made out of this 116, 117, whatever is the number of elements, that's all. And these elements only make up compounds, and then this. Then at some point of time, from this element, when it becomes compound, and then from this, it becomes, all of a sudden it acquires life. You start calling it, it's a non-living matter. That issue is raised. Till some point, it remains as a matter only, inanimate matter, non-living material. But after some time, a cell becomes living, a living cell, living tissue, organism, and so on. It becomes all of a sudden. So when matter plus the spirit, then it becomes living, the soul or whatever it is. So that is the other part of it. So science only deals with the science that we have been taught, we have been learning, and we know about. That is mostly of matter, of physical things. But there is another science which is of the spirit, that is the spiritual science. In the same way, matter can also be looked at spiritually. That is what you did just now. This is according to me. You look at it normally, which is looked at scientifically, in a routine way, in a general way. And that is how it is learned. That is how we try to understand stone. Stone is made up of certain minerals, and it is available. It is part of geologic cycle. And stone becomes, when it disintegrates, it becomes soil. Soil becomes, it is all taken to the ocean. It becomes sediment. Sediments, under geological pressure, it becomes sedimentary rocks and metamorphic rocks. And when there is kind of lava and from inner molten things, when they come out of earth, they bring in a lot of the sediments. Then they become volcanic lava. And that is what the igneous rock is. So all these igneous rocks, you said how old it is. In fact, all the igneous rocks that we have, all the stones that we have, it's actually millions of years old. So in that is a question of whether it is 1 million year old or 100 million year old or 1,000 million year old. It's a question of then one is older than the other one. It's all millions of years old, of which the granite stone, various forms of granite, or whether it's a basalt or and various forms of. So they are of igneous rocks. They are the oldest. The metamorphic rocks and sedimentary rocks are relatively younger rocks, and so the older rocks are generally dense. And all the attributes of stone you said. Stone has a gender, stone has an appearance, and stone has a face, and stone has even its personification of stone. You don't look at it as a mere matter. You look at it as a personality, as an entity. It may be a non-living entity, but you can also add or give all the attributes of a living thing. That's why you say that it has sound. But I was about to ask you, isn't there any mention of, because stone could be seen and it can be identified, whether the appearance is good, bad, mature, young, it can be. And sound is also there. And the feel is also there, because it's cool, whether it is heavy. But what about taste? Whether stone can be tasted. And with the taste, whether you lick it and then see whether it tastes. Just as soil can also be tasted in the same way. Water can be tasted in the same way. Can stone be also tasted? And another is smell. Whether the stone has any smell. No. The sculptors use the sthapatis. The sthapatis make use of these qualities. To answer Axel's question, and the sthapatis only, you make use of all this. No, they don't go strictly scientifically. Geologically, they don't go. They make use of whether the stone is smooth, whether it is heavy, whether it is dense, whether it has good appearance, whether it has grain, whether the face is, they identify that. They have been trained to identify and pick stone. They select such stone, which is, whether for a particular idol, whether male stone is required, female stone is required, and whether the face up should be there, where you should start etching, the face of the idol should be they know, they employ all these attributes, and then their selection is based on that, not scientifically, not so-called scientifically, which Mr. Gundurao was talking about. I mean, which any geologist will say, oh, this is nothing but this basalt, and it has so much of this element, this element. You know, they can kind of analyze it in terms of minerals. But a sculptor does not, he may not even know what it contains. But he sees a stone in terms of, and he also differentiates stone and identifies the best stone for his purpose on the basis of whatever you mentioned, all of this. Its attributes. These attributes are something like a personality. A person's attributes. In the same way, the stone also acquires a personality, and it becomes a very unique entity. And ultimately, he selects that stone, and then he starts sculpting. And then it becomes an image of God. Then it's worshipped. So not every stone is worshipped. So after a lot of selection process, a detailed selection process, a stone is selected, and then God, using all the vertical, they have also the iconography. They also know Purusha Lakshana, how exactly it has to be sculpted. In the same way it has been done. And then when they do it, and then there is consecration, the various rituals are there, they undergo, and it is established, it's consecrated, and then only it's worthy of, it becomes worthy of worshipping. No, that is there. This is very, very esoteric. This kind of knowledge is very, very not. But at the same time, among those people, the Sthapatya experts, the Sthapatis and the sculptors and those Shilpis, among them, this is what they know. This is their language. That is what they talk about. So, no, and at the same time, when in environmental science, it becomes very much, what is, or in geological science, stone is understood to be of this chemically, it consists of this. This is what it is, and its density, and you can analyze it. You can also put it, and you can come up with the result. This is nothing but that. You made another very interesting thing about different kind of stone, the shaligla. So earlier I mentioned in our Sanatana Dharma, there is 5 gods are there. Shankaracharya came up with this Shanmata Sthapana. 5 gods. Now this is one is Shiva, Parvati, that is Shakti, and Vishnu, and Surya, and Ganapatyam, that is Ganapati. These 5 gods, primary gods. So all these 5 gods are represented by stones only. It's very interesting thing. That Vishnu is represented by Shaligra. And Shiva is represented by the stone which is available in Narmada River. Narmada Vanam. Vanam they call Narmada Van is Shiva. Any stone you pick up, and that represents Shiva. Like that. In the same way, Surya is represented by Spatika. It's also a stone which like a crystal-like, which shines, which is available in certain parts of Tamil Nadu, which is there. And another stone represents of Sonbhadra River, which is available. You pick up the stone, that becomes Ganapati. And another stone, which is, again, I don't remember the name, that stone represents Shakti. So the stone represents these gods. So you don't have to have an image of, even the stone will, it acquires that kind of divinity. It is inbuilt divinity. They are born with that divinity. These stones are. So that is a very interesting way. It's complementary to the kind of knowledge that Mr. Gundurao gave. This is complementary knowledge. Then it becomes kind of full. Thank you. Thank you so much for this is inspiring me to talk about this, think about this.
Hi. I'm Urvashi, and I'm an interior designer from Delhi. And I wanted to address both Vibhuti ma'am and Ravi sir. So I've specialized in craft design from Rajasthan, Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, and I worked with stone primarily. So first question, actually, sir, you had a very I mean, how would I put it, distasteful towards Rajasthan craftsmen, stone craftsmen. So I worked with a lot of them, and I worked with this particular company called Frozen Music. And so a lot of the craftsmen are working for export projects. Most of their projects are that. And like ma'am was saying earlier, Poonam ma'am was saying earlier, we Indians don't have the same appreciation that they have outside, especially in European countries, where they want the pieces to be a certain way, to look a certain. They want the quality demand is much higher than what we expect. So the craftsmen that I interacted with, and they all have this, especially in the case of patina, for instance, they had this understanding of how to match stone, how stone would, selecting stone, how each stone would work with the other stone, how different stones would work together. And so, yeah, there is, I'd say, because though I consider them as my people, so I'd say there's a lot of knowledge there. And I had a question for both you and Vibhuti ma'am. So because of climate change and because of environmental crisis and overconsumption, a lot of materials are getting extinct. So, for instance, there is a craft called the chintz craft, the hand-painted fabric. So they can't recreate the exact thing because a lot of the materials that were used are now extinct because of the climate, because of overuse and all of those problems that we're facing now. So in this stone, in restoration, are we facing similar situations, and how would we go about, yeah, we definitely are facing similar situations, but how would we, what would be your, what is your thought on that? Yeah.
Vibhuti, would you like to go first? This connects what Vibhuti was, expounding about, which is something a lot of our traditional knowledge has been lost. A lot of river, water has flown through Narmada and Ganga. So we've lost a lot. Now, I don't want to go overboard to say, I suppose it always happened. Saraswati River disappeared, and with that, Harappan civilization disappeared. So a lot of knowledge has been lost. Whether it could not have been lost is another question. Now, she's talking about a para-geology, a completely different system of geology. After listening to her, I wish we had. No, but both of us, I think, she's sitting in her academic position, me in a bread and butter, brick and mortar position, both readily agree that road was lost quite some time ago. So we need to get back there is another issue, but which means we really have to go back. It's like a tracing your step back. So we have already gone so far. So what was I saying? I mean, the traditional skills, be it stone or lime or mud or timber or any of it, we are now a chain society. This is my instant view after listening to you, although the question has been in my mind for quite some time. So what I do is, for example, I don't like dealing with half-cooked fake traditional knowledge. I see plenty of it around. And it's a hindrance to my profession, where, it's like a very individual matlabi dunya, where, I don't, if somebody says I'm a Rajasthani Kadiya, how do I know? Unless I see his work. When I see the work, I will know. The work speaks for itself. So this occasionally I come across a genuine traditional knowledge, whether it's food or in building construction or in any field. So to answer your question, I have no answers, obviously, but I would say our education system is a very simplistic solution to say, let's go back to the blackboard types. So if you're talking about lost traditional system, whatever Vibhuti is talking about, but where do I find this person? I mean, there may be one or two. For example, I went to Mahabalipuram. In Mahabalipuram, there is a 5-year degree in temple architecture, Sthapatis, and I saw their work. To a reasonable level, I believe they know what Vibhuti was talking about. To a reasonable level, I mean, they're not masters. They're modern generation. So I think from this loss of traditional knowledge has happened across the world, and some of it, I'm afraid, is lost for good. It'll ever stay as some sort of like a dinosaur. But now I'll go back to Vibhuti to see what she has to say, because it connects your question as well as what she talked about. How do we realize this in the next 150 years?
I'm conscious that that we're running out of time, and there's a comment in the box. But I don't think all is lost at all, because lots of survives in other disciplines like textiles. A lot has got revived in food and music. Music is thriving. I mean, I see so much young talent in classical singing, instrumental. There's so much richness in old traditional styles, and they are innovating as well. In cuisine, so much survives. It's architecture which has kind of taken the major blow. And I think we just need to build bridges. If we build bridges between allied fields, between cultures, and there's so much around, we can start using the resource we have. I mean, we have, I think we got kind of a bit, we lost our way because we were made to feel a bit superstitious about our culture. We were made to feel that we're not scientific people. We don't speak English. We are not civilized. So for 200 years, we were told that, and we started believing it. And I think it's time we kind of start hearing our own voice and start being what we are rather than imitating what we're not. And we have huge resources, for the younger generation. And actually now technology offers us, there's so many texts that have been digitized in the last 50 years. There's so much translation done. All the, visual material is available on the net. And this is the best time for research ever. I mean, I'm really, really optimistic about the future. Absolutely. I think we need to just make bridges, just start enjoying what we have. I think we've got a lot of riches still. I mean, I'm conscious that Shika is waiting and she has to go for another meeting. Otherwise, we would have chatted for long. Sorry, Shika, it's your turn now.
Okay, so then let us thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ravi sir also. So then let us quickly move on.